where she always wore dresses, small and frail, had her hair straight, always had gray hair all my life I've known her. But she was a sweet woman, sweet disposition, give you the last of her last, won't miss a birthday, won't miss a certain holiday. She always handed out. It wasn't a big gift, but it was always a good gift. Sister Little was definitely an icon growing up in my life. She definitely influenced me with a lot of different things. She taught me a lot of different things about patience. She told me a lot of stories about life in general. She was a great impact in my life. Let me tell you about Miss Little. Miss Little, well, first of all, let me start with sharing with you. I grew up in a little small town in South Georgia. Just about everybody knew everybody. Fairly good mix of jobs at the time. I attended this church, a little small, quaint church. Really wasn't that many of us, but there was one lady there that really stood out. We called everybody brothers and sisters. So her name was Sister Little. Sister Little, she was small in stature. She really wasn't too tall. She had a very light, airy voice. Wasn't one of them nagging, it was more like soothing, calming type voices. She always, as long as I know, as long as I was around, she always were older. She was an older woman. She was old my whole entire life. I never saw her age. She didn't seem like she would age. She was a beautiful older woman, small and frail, but she always would say certain things and encouraging words. She was the type where if you're a young man and your shirt wasn't buttoned, she was the type to come up and shake your hand and pat you on the hand and then fix your button on your shirt. Make sure you button it up. No showing no chest around here. She was also the type of woman that when the young girls would come to church, and when I say young girls, even young women would come to church, if they had low-hanging dresses or what have you, she would gather the dresses up and then or pull the dress up so it wouldn't show too much of their cleavage. She was that type, but she had this presence about her where she could get away with it. It wasn't like one of them things where you was like, don't come near me, but it was a certain culture at that time. The culture was in a spirit of love and a spirit of, I want to show you something that you may not be privy to. It was all about building up. It was a totally different mindset at that time. But Sister Little, she always would smile, and she had this cute little laugh she had about her. And like I said, she was small in stature, but she carried a lot of responsibilities. You know, you could tell she holds her own. Now, one day, my mom and I, we was over to Sister Little house. We were sitting on the front porch. That's what you do in the South when you go visit people. And my mom was always the visitor. She was the type that always go by people's houses and go visit and sit with them in the church. Mainly a lot of the older members. And one day we was doing like we normally do, sitting on the front porch. And she was in her chair, her little rocking chair, and I was sitting right next to her. And we were having a conversation, and Sister Little, she was just talking, and she always got a good story to tell. But the neighbor, who I've seen over the years, and sometimes she would come by the church, and she would come some Sundays or some Wednesday nights doing Bible study, she would come. But this neighbor came out the house, because the houses were very close together where she lived at. You could pretty much reach over the fence and almost touch the next house. But the neighbor came out, and man, she was cussing like a storm. Man, she was going off. She was completely cussing like a storm. And Sister Little sat there with her legs crossed and her hands folded in her lap. And she said, And then she looked at me, and my mouth just dropped. I was looking, because I ain't never heard this woman talk like that. And I ain't even know what to expect. But I looked at Sister Little, and Sister Little looked at me, and she said, baby, you need to always remember. She says, people don't change, they just get older. And sometimes the times as they get older, sometimes the stuff that didn't change come out. And that thing stuck with me for a long time. And it also helps me to interact and deal with people that I feel like they should be acting a certain way, or they should display themselves in a certain way because they older. And I used to feel like, you older, you should be acting a certain way, or you should carry yourself a certain way. But now that I'm older, I see what she's saying. A lot of things we have and we kind of suppress it, but our core us is our core us, and it does come out sooner or later. Sometimes it's an embarrassing situation, sometimes it's a necessary situation, but most of the times our core us really don't leave us. What we do according to ethics and society, and especially that quote Southern hospitality, most of the time we become someone who we're not. And then we find ourselves later on that a lot of that stuff don't matter over a period of time, because nothing worse than living a lie your whole complete life, not being yourself, not expressing yourself. Now, granted, her neighbor was going off, she was pissed off, but at the same time, she was naturally hurt, and she didn't shock Sister Little, because Sister Little known her since she was little. So she knew who that person was. But what she was doing with everybody else outside of the house, she was being a different person. Now, that same neighbor, she turned to the side and she saw us on the porch, and she looked and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, y'all, forgive me. That boy of mine," she was talking about her son at the time, and she was just going off because something he had did or didn't do for whatever reason. But that was her. And sometimes we forget that people are just people at the end of the day. Yeah, we age, yeah, we do different things, and yeah, you may not agree with it, but people are just people. So when you see some of these old people acting up and doing stuff that you be like, you too old for that, just understand a lot of times people don't change. The real core of the person don't change. They just get older. So people are people. We all got our flaws, we all got our faults, and we try to work on it to the best of our ability, but sometimes things just come out in ways we don't agree with. With that said, as you interact with people of all ages, of all dynamics, us older people need to be a little bit more patient with some of the younger people, because we know deep down inside what's in us, and we know how we really want to act, but somehow we done got a little constraint about us and we don't express it. But just keep in mind to remember that you're no different from them. You just got a little age on you, and you could try to hold it together a little bit better than them. So let us be a guidance. Let us also not be so judgmental, not be so harsh on just the youth and what they should and what they shouldn't do. They still growing, they still learning. But remember, it don't go away, you just learn how to suppress it. So y'all stay well, stay blessed, and don't forget to keep on growing. Grow.